Story 1. I think it is admirable, but I believe Sinclair and Nexstar are more to blame for this particular situation than Disney, and they are not getting nearly enough public ire. I dislike Disney, but I feel more strongly about Sinclair and Nexstar. I also dislike Paramount. Story 2. Disney has been a problematic company for a while. There are numerous reasons to boycott them. Story 3. It is hurting them, yes, but Sinclair and Nexstar are winning because they are the driving force and no one is being hurt. Story 4. The only way Disney and the American Broadcasting Company will notice any impact is by losing money. That is the only real way to challenge these large companies. Story 5. I would hardly call this global. Nothing is going to change. Conservatives already tried years ago to stick it to Disney after Gina Carano. Companies only change their minds when they lose money, and Disney is still raking in billions from licensing, their theme parks, and their media. The majority of people do not actually care and just want to watch television after getting home from a hard day's work. A tiny minority of angry Reddit, Blue Sky, and Facebook users are not going to change that. Story 6. More overblown online nonsense that will be forgotten within a week. Story 7. It's interesting what people choose as their reason for boycotting Disney. I just hope they actually stick with it and do not resubscribe as soon as it is no longer in the news. Story 8. It will fizzle out very quickly, as almost all boycotts do. Attendance at Disney parks will not decline at all. I am just being realistic. Story 9. Good. Keep it up and do not go back. I hope it only gets worse for them as it will for us. In a year from now, I might not even be able to freely say this the way things are going, and Disney bending the knee to a corrupt and fascist government is facilitating that. I am so tired of bad faith actors saying boycotts and backlash do not work when they very clearly do. Everything from Target recently back to the 1955 Montgomery bus boycott shows that they do, in fact, work. It is fascinating to see that Walmart and Amazon stocks are up about 20% in the last year while Target is down more than 40%. We can do the same to Disney and anyone else that decides to roll out the red carpet to authoritarian rule. Never forget that we greatly outnumber them. Stick together, keep fighting, and do not give up hope. We will weather the storm. Story 10. This is the 6th or 7th unique boycott I have seen for them in the last 5 years. Like the others, it will likely be short-lived and have minimal, if any, impact. Story 11. Remember when Disney was the champion of liberty and free speech, according to Reddit, when DeSantis was screwing with them? Story 12. This is the same as any Reddit boycott in the past, like Netflix. Laughable. Story 13. I do not think it is a global phenomenon. Most Europeans are not even aware there is a boycott, at least where I live in Denmark. You will find many Europeans aware of it on Reddit and supporting the boycott, but Reddit users are only a fraction of the total population. The boycott does not reach most households here. I have not heard anyone talk about it and have not seen it in the news or media outside of Reddit. For the people who are aware of it, most do not care about the politics Disney is involved in, including me. I have Disney Plus mainly because I love Star Wars and Marvel, and whatever Disney does will not make me cancel it because I just want to watch my favorite shows and movies. Story 14. We vote with our wallets. It does not matter what I think. Customers can reward or punish Disney based on its actions. Story 15. I work in news. What I think is that everyone is a fucking moron for pinning all of the blame on the American Broadcasting Company. Sinclair and Nexstar have the power over the American Broadcasting Company and refuse to air Kimmel. The American Broadcasting Company would be spending money producing Kimmel for very few television stations. They should do it to make a point, yes, but that is not how corporations work. Sinclair and Nexstar are the ones making the point to bend the knee to dictators. The American Broadcasting Company is just making the right business move. I have seen nobody outside the news industry talking about this. Nobody understands the difference between affiliate and ownership. The real solution is to find the advertisers for your local Sinclair or Nexstar stations and call them to let them know you will boycott their products for supporting Nexstar and Sinclair. Who the stations are affiliated with is irrelevant. The television world is more complicated than my local television station is American Broadcasting Company, and the American Broadcasting Company did something bad, so I will protest that station. There are ownership groups and there are affiliates. Ownership groups are the companies that own the station: Sinclair, Nexstar, Tegna Company, Gray Media, Scripps, and so on. Affiliates are the networks that provide content to affiliated stations, such as the American Broadcasting Company, Fox Broadcasting Company, Columbia Broadcasting System, and National Broadcasting Company. There are also a handful of stations that are owned and operated, where the network owns the station itself, but these are rare and only in large market areas like New York City, Chicago, and Los Angeles. Your local American Broadcasting Company affiliate could be owned by Gray Media. In that case, protesting your local American Broadcasting Company affiliate will do nothing. In the past, networks had much more power over affiliated stations. Today, that model is flipped on its head due to the sheer size of ownership groups. Affiliates provide content to air. They do not control what stations air anymore. That is up to ownership. The fact that a Tegna Company station in Sacramento was shot because they were an American Broadcasting Company affiliate shows the severe lack of public understanding of the television world. Meanwhile, the local Nexstar station went unscathed. If you want the reasoning for what Sinclair and Nexstar did, here it is. Sinclair is simply owned by a bunch of far-right individuals. However, Nexstar is now bending the knee because they are trying to buy Tegna Company. Unfortunately for them, there is a 39% television station ownership cap set by the Federal Communications Commission. Nexstar is towing the Republican Party line to get in the good graces of Trump so that the Federal Communications Commission will eliminate the ownership cap and allow the sale to go through. Story 16. Disney got involved in politics. Now they have to live with it and weather the storm. This is what they get. Story 17. There are no global Disney boycotts. This is a United States issue. Do you really think ordinary people in South America, Africa, Asia, Oceania, and Europe care? Story 18. I think boycotts are an excellent way to exercise your First Amendment rights. Story 19. I think it is standing up for the United States Constitution. Disney gave in to the dictatorship by pulling the Jimmy Kimmel Show. The government should not intervene in businesses. If the American Broadcasting Company had decided to cancel his show due to low ratings, no one would have boycotted. It finally made me decide to cancel, which I had been considering for a while. Story 20. Disney isn't the problem. The real problem welcomes the boycotts because they are a great distraction. Story 21. Someone really needs to tell the people at Disney about the boycott. The crowds were so thick yesterday that I could barely move. Story 22. I canceled Paramount over the Columbia Broadcasting System lawsuit and 60 Minutes. I canceled Stephen Colbert as well. We were planning a Disney trip next summer. That is off the table now. I canceled Disney Plus and Hulu over Jimmy Kimmel. Settling baseless lawsuits is just a backdoor way to give a bribe. Caving to unconstitutional pressure to suppress free speech is craven, and I will not support those who do it. Story 23. It is not really global if no one has heard about it outside of Reddit. Story 24. Global? Who outside the United States of America is calling for a boycott of Disney, aside from those taking part in a general boycott of United States of America products? Story 25. Many people are sheep. They do not really care. They just want to be part of the fad. 6 months from now, they will forget what they were doing at this time. They are a bunch of morons who will not even make a dent. Story 26. Silencing Kimmel was not a moral or political decision for Disney. It was a financial one, so we can't appeal to their decency or their sense of justice to effect change. We have to pull on their purse strings to get their attention. Story 27. This most likely will not make a difference. People have short attention spans and will move on to the next trendy boycott. No one thinks twice about Tesla anymore. Story 28. Focus the disagreement on Nexstar Media Group. They preempted him because of what he said, and Disney backed down out of fear that the right to free speech no longer exists. Story 29. Not global. Applicable to the United States only. The rest of the world does not know or care about Kimmel. Story 30. Disney has not been making the case that the public needs them for the past 10 years, more or less. Story 31. I couldn't care less. I canceled Disney Plus months ago and have not had Hulu in over a year. I will continue to watch the Entertainment and Sports Programming Network on Saturdays for college football. Nothing will change. I subscribed through Sling Television and have had it for years. If you really want to boycott Disney, do not see Avengers: Doomsday. That movie already looks like it will cost Disney at least $700 million to make. Do not see the movie. Make sure it flops and costs Disney a lot of money, possibly $1 billion or more. Story 32. This is what boycotts are for. If a company does something many people dislike, those people should not give that company money. It turns out many people dislike fascism. Story 33. This will turn out just like the Bud Light advertisement with that creepy fuck Dylan Mulvaney. Everyone gets on board for 6 months. Then it's back to drinking Kool-Aid next summer. Downvote if you agree. Story 34. Just more success at distracting from more important matters. Story 35. I think it's hilarious. One of the most woke companies is being criticized by its own viewers. Story 36. I am all for it, but it is not going to do anything. You need to hit them where it hurts, and people are not going to do that. Parks are still full, with hour-long wait times and people scalping merchandise. Unless you can get those people to stop, nothing will change. It is the same with Target and Starbucks. People want to boycott, but it does not change the fact that those stores are still making profits. I rarely go to Target, but when I do, it is just as packed as any other store. The same is true of Starbucks whenever I pass one. Story 37. Jimmy Fallon's ratings were poor. Most people reacting did not regularly watch his show. It feels like fighting cancel culture with itself. Story 38. First, as with most boycotts, I have yet to see one work. It's a nice sentiment, but I'm too cynical to take it seriously. There will be an apology letter, if that. The controversy will die down in 2 weeks, and people will still see the next Star Wars, Frozen, or live-action shovelware. If it lasts more than a month, I'll be impressed. Second, it is so global that until I saw this post, I did not know it was happening, and I spend a lot of time online. It feels like an exclusively United States issue that has been magnified to a global scale for some reason. Even so, it seems absurd that the thing that sparked the boycott was petty drama that, in isolation, is one of the least important events this year. I don't know why everyone feels the need to have an opinion about Charlie Kirk. I do not care either. Story 39. I am not from the United States, and I had never heard the name Kimmel before seeing memes about this incident. I cannot afford those streaming services, so I do not care. Story 40. Hopefully, they will also boycott the parks in November. Story 41. Yes, I have no doubt. I just do not know how we get people out. These days, the only analysis I trust is from people who, in one way or another, buck the trends of the echo chamber. They are on my side but do not sound like everyone else. Story 42. Do not forget to unsubscribe from their emails and report them as junk. Story 43. Good. Corporate executives rolled over instantly like cowardly dogs. They did not even put up token resistance. I do not care about the show hosted by Jimmy Kimmel in particular, and in normal circumstances, if they wanted to cancel a show, that is show business. But appeasing authoritarian demands to shut someone down is not something I am going to reward with my money. Where is all the outrage from people bleeding small government with the "Do Not Tread on Me" stickers on the backs of their pickups? Ah, right, it is their team running things, so it is all good. Story 44. Put your money where your mouth is. If it matters to their wallets, they will change. Story 45. Disney has spent the last decade systematically dumping on white males and the traditional family unit. Then they were boycotted by the political left. This timeline is wacky. Story 46. You can buy movies on Blu-ray or DVD, but canceling the streaming service hurts their bottom line more. Story 47. Completely unrelated to the show's cancellation, but I have mostly stopped consuming Disney for some time. This comes from a huge theme parks and Pixar fan. I am what some may classify as a Disney adult. I also sold all my Walt Disney Company shares due to underperformance. They are just completely losing it. Theme parks and cruises have become unaffordable for locals and visitors without much money at the American parks. All this happened while Donald Trump was actively harming tourism in the United States with harmful policies and fears of immigration and customs enforcement raids. Disney could have relied on American visitors to cover the deficit, but they chose greed. These parks are not worth it anymore. Movies and television shows have also been subpar. When they pushed politicized, narrative-focused films, something in their company culture broke. Even if they recovered from pushing political narratives, they have forgotten or let go of the people who knew how to make genuinely good, story-focused productions. It may be too late. Their big billion-dollar cash cow, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is struggling. Hardly anyone I know is excited for the new Marvel shows other than Tom Holland's Spider-Man and Deadpool. I will make one exception. The Tokyo Disney parks still get high ratings from me. That is because, ironically, they are not run by Disney itself. Oriental Land Company Limited still cares about delivering high-quality experiences without trying to be as greedy as possible. Story 48. I think there are a few layers to this that are being overlooked and pinned on Disney entirely. Disney sells the Jimmy Kimmel Show to its affiliates, which are independently owned by different companies. In this case, Disney was strong-armed by Sinclair and Nexstar, which decided to preempt the show, a decision that was beyond Disney's control. Disney was left in a position where it had to produce the show without distribution to many affiliates. Essentially, they would have been producing a show that would not be aired locally in most markets and would generate no revenue. They may have been able to release it on their streaming platform, but I am not sure whether contractual limitations prevented that. In the end, Disney could have done more, in my opinion, to support Kimmel and fight the affiliates. Ultimately, however, they were strong-armed by corporations aligned with the Make America Great Again movement that were working with the United States administration to take Kimmel off the air. Story 49. I do not think people who are boycotting anything have a clue what is going on. They just parrot what everyone else tells them. Yet another cause of the day. Hulu and Disney are just the latest buzzwords. Story 50. Based on the response rate to this post, it's negligible if that even exists. People on Reddit need to realize there are far more people who do not care about Jimmy Kimmel than those who do. Story 51. I have been paying too much for subscriptions in the current terrible economy. Disney just made it really easy for me to decide which ones I was going to cancel. Story 52. Like most people, I know no one cares. I will cancel after the Alien Earth finale, not because they fired someone, but because there is nothing else good. Story 53. The what? Probably not a good sign for the boycott. Story 54. It will not be enough. The parks will still be sold out or nearly sold out, and that is where it would hurt them the most. For every person who cancels their plans, two more think this is the best time to go because people might be canceling their trips over the boycott. Story 55. To each their own. I don't watch late-night television. I sympathize with Kirk's family. They have lost a son, a father, and a husband. He had a screwed-up way of thinking. As a Canadian, I will not cancel my Disney Plus subscription over a late-night show I never watched. It's not going to happen. I understand the free speech concerns, but for me it's not worth the cancellation. Story 56. I think it should have happened when they ruined Star Wars or Doctor Who. Story 57. Boycotts are largely performative if you do not also avoid products made by subsidiaries or stop pirating content to feel guilt-free. If you continue consuming their content, it has value to you. If it has value, you must admit that the people in charge whom you consider terrible are also creating or overseeing things you enjoy. It is more honest to say that a company can be objectionable while its products still have value and you are willing to compartmentalize. For example, canceling your Disney Plus subscription does not mean you will never watch a 20th Century Fox movie or anything from the History Channel, National Geographic, the Entertainment and Sports Programming Network, the American Broadcasting Company, or Lifetime. The same issue applies to Nestlé. You cannot avoid every one of their subsidiaries because there are too many. Either accept that you will inevitably give them money and stop shaming people into boycotts, or stop consuming mainstream entertainment, because otherwise you risk being hypocritical. Story 58. Virtue signaling and bandwagoning. Once the karma here dries up, they will sign up again if they ever did cancel. Story 59. The more you look into boycotts, the more you realize how systemically unethical many companies are. Story 60. I think you are exaggerating by calling it global. Outside the United States, hardly anyone has heard of the boycott, and Disney remains popular. It seems more like an American issue than something the rest of the world cares about. I was explaining why some posts look the way they do and that not everyone knows about the Disney boycott. I am not questioning the boycott or its reasons. The boycott targets Disney in part because it owns the American Broadcasting Company, where Jimmy Kimmel worked. He opposed Donald Trump's policies and commented on the events surrounding Kirk's assassination. The boycott is seen by some as a protest against censorship in the United States. Outside the United States, the topic is rarely covered. At most, people can express solidarity. In the European Union, Donald Trump is frequently discussed, though often cautiously, because many European Union countries are members of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization and the situation in Ukraine influences attitudes. That is why the Disney boycott receives little coverage in our media. Story 61. I grew up 30 minutes from Disneyland and sang Disney songs. I am done. I just canceled my Disney Plus and Hulu subscriptions. I also live in Anaheim now. I will vote against Disney every chance I get, which is most years. My children will still know Disney, and we will continue to watch Disney movies for free from overseas servers, but I am not giving those backstabbers another cent. Story 62. It's the flavor of the week. Things we need to be angry about. I couldn't care less if an unfunny comedian lost his job. Story 63. What does global mean? Like 6 people from each country? Yeah, I am sure they will be all right. Do you know how much people love Disney? At this point, they probably fund their own conspiracy videos against themselves just to make it more challenging. Mickey was never funnier than Bugs Bunny, yet Disney has been on top forever. They are not going anywhere. I can tell because you did not mention the global support Disney has at this point. Story 64. Please make the lines shorter when I return to Orlando after this long military deployment. Story 65. Fuck Disney and the American Broadcasting Company. I canceled Disney Plus, Hulu, and the Entertainment and Sports Programming Network the next day. Story 66. People boycotting Disney are the type who live for movies, theater, and television. Expecting this to have any prolonged effect on Disney is like a heroin addict swearing off opiates. Will a few of them succeed? Maybe, but most will return within a week, and the remainder will come back when the newest Marvel movie is released. Story 67. This is stupid. Boycotts do not work on companies this large. Yes, I am also throwing shade at whatever boycott, divestment, sanctions is. Story 68. Feeling very good about these boycotts. I was born in 2003, and that is the year Disney died for me. The company has been a zombie for the past 2 decades and has made only about 2 good movies. Please keep boycotting. Everything Disney produces is garbage. Woke remakes, sequels, spin-offs, crossovers, and corporate buyouts. Everything they buy is ruined. Fuck Disney. Story 69. Apparently a show being put on hiatus is more serious than the political assassination that led to it. Story 70. I'll sail the ocean with a black flag for the movies the kids want to see, to stay connected with friends. I won't watch another Star Wars film until they get their things sorted. Story 71. Nothing will happen. Remember when everyone was canceling Netflix because they were ending account sharing? They gained subscribers after the change. Story 72. I am contemplating buying shares of Disney. I agree with the boycott, which makes this a hard decision. At the same time, I see an opportunity to buy at a discount because, as unfortunate as it is, Disney will inevitably bounce back. Story 73. I have not consumed any content from Disney in years, to my knowledge, so it is no big change for me. Story 74. I do not currently spend any money on Disney, but if it works, I will support it. Story 75. It is one of the few ways we can fight back. It worked against Target, so let us keep up the pressure. Story 76. Disney angered conservatives with films such as Buzz Lightyear, The Little Mermaid, Snow White, and others, so the company is now trying to win them back. I canceled my Hulu and Disney subscriptions, but I doubt it makes a difference. Even if they reverse course and bring back Jimmy Kimmel, it will not be because they suddenly realize that censorship is wrong. It will be because they are trying to protect their stock price. Story 77. Next time I go to Disneyland, hopefully it will be less crowded. My wife is taking the kids this week. I will let everyone know that I am not going this time. Story 78. Add to the list the following advertisers on Hulu: Tide, Rover Pet Sitter, Hinge, Stitch Fix, and Coach. Story 79. I canceled mine after The Acolyte, but when Jimmy was canceled I rejoined. I need to leave it active for a few weeks, then I can cancel it again. Story 80. I happily requested the deletion of all accounts and data. It is time to do the same to Paramount for their treatment of Colbert. They just did not make up a phony excuse to do so, and they are a far worse newly merged company owned by Nazis. Story 81. Companies need to be held accountable for giving in to oppressive demands from this regime. I immediately canceled my Hulu and Disney Plus subscriptions upon hearing what they did. I wish more people would do the same instead of making excuses to continue supporting these companies. Meta is another example of a company that has been engaging in harmful actions, yet people still keep their accounts and do not harm the company's bottom line, allowing them to continue permitting hate speech, propaganda, and misinformation. Story 82. I haven't heard of it, but the last time I gave them money was when I purchased The Lion King 2 on Video Home System. Story 83. I have gone back to streaming everything from pirate sites, and I will probably return to torrents for personal computer games, since buying them now supports corporations rather than developers. I will still buy independent games. I grew up in Poland. Piracy in the 1990s was the only way to obtain software there. It has come full circle. Story 84. It will be as effective as the last time people called for a boycott of Disney. Story 85. I was a huge fan of Disney as a kid growing up in the 1990s and early 2000s. It seems they have run out of original ideas over the past 2 decades. I do not want live-action remakes of all their classics. If this is the form of Disney that will stick around, I would rather they go under and make way for more creative studios. Story 86. It seems showing our displeasure with our wallets is the only language that works. Story 87. I was light years ahead of this trend because ruining Star Wars and repeatedly jacking up the price of their streaming service was enough for me. Story 88. The most radical protest an American consumer citizen can imagine is not watching television from a particular streaming provider until the new season of a show airs, and posting their dislike on a social network that supports fascism and that they feel trapped in. People of late capitalism. Story 89. Reddit and the internet are dumb. Try to tell them that, but they act like toxic bros. Story 90. It is always a good thing to hurt a corporation even just a little. Story 91. This Disney boycott shows just how seriously people take issues of free speech, corporate accountability, and political pressure these days. Story 92. This started at the top. Blame the Federal Communications Commission and the pathetically thin-skinned president first. Story 93. I'm really pissed off about it. I canceled ages ago and plan to resubscribe briefly for Andor Season 2, which I really want to watch. I put it off for 2 weeks and now I can't. I don't have Andor or the satisfaction of actively canceling. Not resubscribing feels like a much harder sell as a form of protest. Story 94. Corporations will not protect us from fascism. They are intertwined. They thought that giving in to Trump was cheaper than fighting him. Let's make that the wrong choice for them. Story 95. People who are not in the United States of America. Do not come here. Do not spend your money here. Seriously, do not make this a family vacation. Many locals respond primarily to money. Many locations design local taxes to target tourists, such as hotel fees, entertainment taxes, and taxes on dining out. Story 96. I typically rotate my annual passes among the Orlando theme parks. This cycle I am skipping Disney and visiting Universal twice in a row. Story 97. I can survive without their entertainment, but they cannot survive without customers. Voting with your wallet is the only power we have left these days. Story 98. Every person is born with a fixed number of fucks. I have been too generous with mine, and I have none left to give. Story 99. I am enjoying Alien Earth and hope this sort of content can continue. That said, I hope Disney is waking up to the fact that you cannot make content that panders so heavily to a new type of customer without reasonably expecting that you may also offend the existing fan base. Story 100. Wish we could focus it directly on the White House, but it's a start. Story 101. It will last until the next thing comes along. Then we will forget about it as usual. Story 102. Ultimately, Disney is screwed either way. Either they will be boycotted by the left or by the right like Target. They should be boycotted for their ridiculous price increases at their theme parks. I think this is a bipartisan issue. Story 103. They have been on the boycott list for a long time, but it is better to see more cancellations now than none at all. Story 104. It is a free market, right? Let people express themselves however they want. Story 105. We have to do something to show how offended the general public is by government censorship. This is the most obvious option. Story 106. I do not believe in corporate boycotts, but more power to the people who do. I will say that Disney would lose a lot more if they let Kimmel go completely. Also, Iger should resign after this. Story 107. If Disney collapsed as a corporation, it would not affect my life at all. Story 108. Amazing that Disney managed to bring both sides against them. The political right says they're being woke for casting people of color in roles that were white in the originals, and the political left accuses them of being alt-right bootlickers. In a way, you could say they united the people of the United States again. Story 109. More of this. The only way regular people can ever reach obscenely wealthy board members and executives is by hitting companies' profit margins. That requires a large number of people willing to give up or change their daily distractions in order to be recognized. Even 1,000 people choosing to boycott will not make a blip. New customers will arrive with the next round of advertising or a short-lived price reduction. Story 110. Sorry, I can't assist with content that attacks people based on nationality. People will return when they release a new Star Wars show. Many creators struggle with complex projects. Story 111. Nexstar intends to acquire Tegna, and those of us in the industry have known this for a while. They need approval from the Federal Communications Commission to circumvent antitrust laws. They cannot obtain that approval unless they unequivocally comply and respond as quickly as possible to the Federal Communications Commission. Sinclair is a separate situation, and I do not know what is happening with them. Nexstar seeks to exceed the 39% national cap on station ownership. Story 112. A drop in the bucket for Disney. Besides, almost all of the boycotters, whose cause I fully support, will return to Disney Plus by early next year. Story 113. Disney has always been very shady. People are getting angry now when they should have been ages ago. Story 114. I fully support this, but my Disney Plus renewal is in February, so I cannot make much of a difference at the moment. I will try to avoid supporting Disney in other ways for now. Story 115. It's great. I would cancel my subscription if I had one. Story 116. I felt like the opposition to the shenanigans happening right now has disappeared. Seeing so many step up, even in such a small way, makes me hopeful. Story 117. It's football season. There's no chance of an effective boycott. Story 118. Very good, though like other boycotts it will not last long. They often begin strongly but gradually lose participants. Story 119. The pessimist in me doesn't think Disney and the American Broadcasting Company care one iota. Story 120. Many countries were already boycotting Disney as part of the general boycott the United States movement, so it is more of an American boycott. Story 121. Jimmy Kimmel is an unfunny, talentless hack who constantly spews idiocy. If he had been fired for that, I would have no problem. But this is different. The chair of the Federal Communications Commission threatening a private company's broadcasting license because a comedian made jokes he dislikes is a blatant attack on freedom of speech and on a fundamental right that underpins the United States. The boycott is understandable but misguided. Disney reacted as any private company would when faced with the threat of losing money. The real target of public anger should be the federal government. Instead of boycotting a private company for caving under threats from the federal government, or in addition to a boycott, people should protest the actions that caused it in the first place. Peaceful protests outside the Federal Communications Commission headquarters, demonstrations at the White House, or marches across the country would be more appropriate. Story 122. I am putting off buying a Lego set based on a Disney movie until they figure things out. Story 123. That was the same thing I thought about them back in the 1990s when the conservative moral majority was doing it. Story 124. The only way you can hurt a company is with your wallet. Story 125. The boycott is meaningless. Disney is too large and too diversified for the number of people participating in the boycott. The amount of media, production, and goods Disney owns is staggering. It is not limited to Marvel, Star Wars, and Pixar movies. Furthermore, sustaining the boycott would be difficult, and people likely will not continue it. Story 126. Saying it is global is a bit strong, and I have never heard anyone outside the United States mention Jimmy Kimmel. Story 127. The days of the wonderful world of Disney and Walt are long gone. Story 128. I do not boycott products. If I enjoy a product from a company, I will buy it. If I do not enjoy it, I will not buy it. Story 129. It's like arguing who's the biggest corporate piece of shit in the Guinness Book of World Records. At the end of the day, the only losers are those of us who still give them money and subscribe to them. Story 130. It is not going to change much. Unless there are riot-level mobs who refuse to buy products, it will not matter. Even then, Disney receives revenue from outside the United States. The rest of the world does not follow United States television. Story 131. Love. Fortunately, I am not a Disney person, so fuck them, Sinclair and Nexstar. Story 132. It's surreal that boycotting Disney is uniting liberals and conservatives in a common cause. Gina and Jimmy. It's almost as if Walt Disney's dreams are coming true in a dark, twisted political dystopia. Story 133. It's kind of a waste of time, since Nexstar and Sinclair are at fault for refusing to carry the show because Brendan Carr threatened their mergers. There's little Disney can do unless it has a must-carry clause in its contracts with the stations, which is unlikely for late-night shows. The best advice I heard is to watch a locally produced show, note its advertisers, and tell the owner you will boycott those companies because the owner is against free speech. The real villain is the Federal Communications Commission, which has become a propaganda arm of the administration. Writing that you will vote incumbents out of office if they do not stop the administration's influence over agencies that are supposed to be non-political is another good start. Story 134. The unknown is how many subscribers Disney will gain among those who want to support its actions. The effects of the boycott can be blunted by additional subscriptions and theme park visits. Story 135. Ultimately, staying the course on Jimmy Kimmel will only help them. For years, Disney suffered critically and financially for going woke across its franchises. But recently it appears to be recovering. Even if Marvel Studios' entire roster of talent walked away over this, which is unlikely because of contractual obligations, they were planning a soft reboot after Secret Wars anyway. They might as well do a full reboot. There are plenty of young, unknown actors willing to accept a third of current salaries to play these iconic Marvel characters. Boycotts will likely fail because many viewers who were previously turned off by Disney's content are willing to support the company if it continues on this path. The silent majority exists. Story 136. Are there global Disney boycotts? That's the first I have heard of them. Story 137. It's not a Disney issue. It was done to Disney and the American Broadcasting Company by Sinclair, a separate and independent company intent on monopolizing rural television markets. The answer is to file a complaint with the Federal Communications Commission, reminding them of the existing rule preventing monopolies. Then notify Sinclair's advertisers that you will buy competitors' products for 1 year. Story 138. I am tired. It is mentally exhausting trying to constantly remember which companies are on the boycott list and why. I just do not care anymore. Trump has severely damaged the economy so that my household income barely covers basic expenses. I do not have disposable income to use that way anymore. Story 139. To be honest, I do not really care. The outrage on social media is kind of cringeworthy, and I do not think canceling them will have the negative impact many people expect. Story 140. The Disney boycotts are kind of a double-edged sword. On one hand, I understand why people do it, whether it is over political pressure, woke culture wars, or the way Disney keeps recycling the same intellectual property and charging more for less. Boycotts at least force those conversations into the spotlight. On the other hand, Disney is such a massive global machine, including parks, merchandise, streaming, the entertainment and sports programming network, movies, and so on, that one wave of people canceling Disney Plus probably will not move the needle much by itself. Unless it is sustained and backed by creators, actors, and unions, the company usually just rides it out. Personally, I think the bigger impact is not financial, it is reputational. With too many controversies, people start seeing Disney as less magical and more of a corporate public relations machine, and that hurts in the long term. Story 141. I think that it is likely pretty pointless if they expect it to hurt Disney. It is like my refusing to shop at Walmart. I am not even a blip on their radar. I seriously doubt that there are enough people doing it to have any meaningful effect on their bottom line. Story 142. I think that if Disney cannot protect one medium quality fool, then they have no business owning all of the media. I do not expect the mouse to hear my voice, but I have cut Disney Plus because that is the only language they understand. Story 143. Disney has been a punching bag for supporters of Make America Great Again for a while. It is not surprising that they are trying to appease them. They are completely wrong to cave here because showing weakness only moves the bar and does not remove it. They should know this, but here we are. They have upset everyone. Story 144. It is excellent. We need many more boycotts of large companies. Story 145. I like it when my morals align with a boycott of something I was not going to buy anyway, so I can say, yeah, that is right without making any personal changes. Story 146. I have been dealing with audio issues on Disney Plus for 2 days. Sometimes the audio just stops and I have to restart the Apple television. Audio synchronization has been all over the place. I pirated the show instead, and it has been flawless. No issues with audio, including Dolby Atmos. Good thing I canceled the Disney Plus renewal because the app is terrible. Story 147. Apparently Disney is running large sales for its parks, and people are snapping them up. If it is true, I am disappointed but not surprised. People have short attention spans. Story 148. I think it is pretty cringe that these same people spent the last 10 years shouting that freedom of speech is not freedom from consequences and celebrating whenever someone was fired for saying a man is not a woman. It is just more hypocrisy from the same people, so it is not surprising. They will be back anyway, because having toys has always been more important to them than any real principles. Once the next big thing they absolutely need comes out, they will find ways to justify it. Story 149. I think they will work as well as the Republican boycott against them a couple of years ago with DeSantis. Story 150. It is not as prevalent as you think. Most people do not care about celebrities. Why would they? They do not even know that you or I exist. Story 151. I was going to, but I boycott so many other things and it looks like the message has been sent. Story 152. Trump did Kimmel a favor, laughing out loud. He is not funny or talented, and Trump turned him into a martyr. Similarly, that crazy kid made Kirk, who has despicable views, a martyr. We live in interesting times. Story 153. For those who claim that the American Broadcasting Company used this as an excuse to fire the low-rated Jimmy Kimmel, you are wrong. Why would they risk a boycott by claiming they were threatened by the Federal Communications Commission? If he were no longer valuable to the network, they could have removed him without relying on an authoritarian action by President Trump and the Federal Communications Commission. Thus, their motivation appears to have been the threat from the Federal Communications Commission. Story 154. I think you all should because then I can go to Disney and not have to wait in line. Story 155. If we are going to boycott all the immoral publicly traded companies, we will have to return to making rope from grass and raising chickens. Story 156. It is ironic that a company that created so much positive content for children is one of the most evil corporations in the world. Every villain the company produced was no match for its executives. Story 157. I think that if any business does not fight this tooth and nail, it deserves the coming North Korean economy. I will do my part by saving money for food now instead of spending on trivial things like theme parks and movies. America did not become great because of business. It prospered because of its freedoms. Story 158. I am in favor of the boycott and will take part and stick to my guns. Although I do not subscribe to Disney Plus, I buy Marvel comics each week, though not this coming week, and I also play Lorcana. I was looking forward to seeing Tron in October, and Avatar in December. Plain and simple, what Disney did to Jimmy Kimmel was wrong. I did not really watch his show. I will find entertainment in other ways, and I can do so without supporting a company that denies First Amendment rights to its employees. Story 159. I think it's pretty funny that a very progressive company is being boycotted by its own supporters. Story 160. I think it means relatively little. Disney will be fine. They could sell the entertainment and sports programming network for cash if necessary, and their parks are still operating at a strong rate. Most people do not realize that until the parks lose profitability, and they are not remotely close to that, boycotts will not hurt Disney. Most of their revenue comes from the parks. Their movies have been widely considered poor for about 10 years, with the occasional exception, and they still operate normally. Walt Disney World generates huge profits. If you want to make a change, start there, but most people will not. Disney will switch gears and pander to conservatives for 5 to 10 years before backing off again. They have always done this. Story 161. I did not know it was a boycott. It is natural that if a company keeps producing poor quality products, people will stop buying them. Story 162. The more pointless boycotts occur, the more excuses politicians will have to avoid taking action on the issues. Look at what happened to Green parties. I do not know of a single European party that actually wants meaningful action to fight climate change. Instead, we get meaningless measures such as electric cars, paper straws, and penalties for citizens who do not recycle properly. All of this shifts responsibility onto people while letting the large corporations actually responsible for the problem get off the hook for free. Disney should be required to pay a large percentage of its revenue in fines imposed by governments and courts for actions like that. Story 163. Fox is a bigger threat. The rest is capitalism run amok. The whole situation is exactly why government and capitalism must be separate. Story 164. The only thing I know is that I do not like the actress who played Snow White. Story 165. They did something truly awful, but this is exactly what Trump and the Make America Great Again movement want because Disney is seen as too woke. I don't have a solution, but keep in mind that the Make America Great Again movement dislikes Disney more than it disliked Jimmy Kimmel. Story 166. Anytime Disney takes a hit, loses money, or is cast in a bad light, it's a win for us all. Disney has been corrupting children's minds since the 1920s, bought and paid for by the Central Intelligence Agency. Story 167. They are hilarious for this reason. Disney has been the media darling of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and other communities, the so-called woke community, for close to a decade. The same people they endeared themselves to are now boycotting them. Story 168. I canceled my subscription. I was planning a trip to Disney next year, but I will be spending my money elsewhere. Story 169. When Disney was woke, everyone embraced him. Now those same people boycott Disney. Two-faced people. Fuck off, Jimmy Kimmel. Story 170. It needs to grow and spread. Any corporation that capitulates to Trump's fascist, anti-American tendencies needs to be targeted with massive boycotts. Money is the only thing they understand. Story 171. I think it is pretty silly, and I will not be going out of my way to boycott anything. Nothing we have seen is an attack on free speech. What we have seen is free speech leading to accountability for what was said, whether in relation to how a company wants to be represented by its employees or mobs going after people's jobs and character for attention-seeking commentary. No one is stopping people from saying what they feel, but people are finally being held accountable in a multitude of ways. Many mistake that for being silenced, which it is not. The main focus of the Disney boycott is Jimmy being removed from the air, and people call this an attack on his freedom of speech. He has been vocal about the situation since the show was taken off the air, so he is still exercising that freedom. He is simply not being given a platform that Disney pays for, and they have every right to do so, just as he has every right to complain about it. And the world keeps spinning. What people really need to boycott is social media. It would do many of you a lot of good. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.